I really started to feel like I was suffering because I would never put myself in situations where I would need Spanish unless I absolutely had to. But a part of me felt very embarrassed that I've been in this country for 7 years and I can't confidently say that I speak the language fluently. I tried Duolingo in the beginning, but I hated Duolingo in French, so I didn't bother with that. The ego was like, oh great, I've done 5 minutes of Duolingo today, I'm winning. Well, no, I'm not. I took a few group classes, I hated them. I was using the usual apps, they were awful. What's more expensive is paying for group lessons because I would have more for a longer period and my learning would be a lot slower. Even though in my head I knew those words, my confidence level was quite low, or I said to myself, I'm not going to be able to survive this conversation. I have to do all this prep work, and I would stress out. And I would walk into the situation sweating bullets. When I took myself seriously, I got myself a tutor. It's investing in myself and investing in a tutor that I trust. Now I have the confidence in my abilities to walk into any place that is purely Spanish speaking and not feel ridiculous when I say it.
Hola, Razwana.
Hola, Irene.
Vale. Bueno, in this conversation that I'm gonna have with Razwana and I have, by the way, been learning together for 1.5 years now,
More or less,
more
yeah.
or less, a little bit more, one year and 7 months, more exactly. We're just gonna go over her learning journey, her learning process, how she has felt with everything. I want you to be completely honest here. I'm just gonna be asking you some questions and feel free to answer as you want. Okay?
Okay.
So, who is Radwana and why did she decide to contact me 1.5 years ago?
Well, she's not going to speak about herself in the third person, that's for sure. So I'm a British Pakistani and I've been living in Barcelona now for, well, it will be 9 years in April. And when I first arrived, I could speak some French. I could not speak any Spanish. But I didn't struggle the way I thought I would. I managed to rent an apartment fully in Spanish. Didn't understand a word of what I said yes to, but I did it, and that was not a comfortable experience. And so I started learning on my own with my friends. I took a few group classes. I hated them. I was using the usual apps. They were awful. But because I think I had a base in French, and I also have my mother tongue is Punjabi, I speak a bit of Urdu, so I think my way to get around languages, I kind of had it in my mind, but I have no structured approach to my learning at all. And I really started to feel like I was suffering because I would never put myself in situations where I would need Spanish unless I absolutely had to. So if it's something administrative, maybe in my job, but largely I would avoid. With my Spanish friends and my Catalan friends, we would all speak in English, so I never really had the need. But a part of me felt very embarrassed that I've been in this country for 7 years and I can't confidently say that I speak the language fluently, even though I live in Catalonia, so the official language is Catalan, still everyone here is bilingual. And really, I struggled with the idea of having a one-on-one tutor because to me, it felt like something that was expensive. Maybe it would not add the kind of value that I wanted. I wanted something to do every day. And would I have that with a tutor? No, because I'm not speaking to them every day. But I found you because a friend recommended it to me because he started a job here. He's British as well. And he started a job with a Spanish company and he only spoke in Spanish. And I thought, well, that's the magic pill. If you're forced to speak Spanish every day, of course you learn. But no, you struggle and you try to learn and then you apply. It's not about money. It's not about finding ways to learn on my own every day. It's investing in myself and investing in a tutor that I trust, who's able to not only have the one-on-one classes with me, but also give me exercises that I could then try building into my daily life to then learn and progress. And I think what I really liked about the classes with you is that you didn't appear to have a rigid structure that you push all of your students through. So it was very tailored towards me. And also every lesson was something different because we started with the conversation. You then noted the mistakes I was making. We talked about the corrections, the theory of why these conjugations or sentence structures or the grammar works like this. And so it made, I would say, it brought the language to life in my personal context. And I think that's really important because I'm a very motivated person, as I'm sure you know. And I can pick up a book and go to a course and do the learning. But if I was going to do that, I would have done that when I first arrived 8 years ago, no? So I think that's probably how I would answer your question.
Okay, so a couple of things. First, you said that maybe a one-on-one tutor was very expensive. Do you remember the price that you paid for those group lessons that you attended for a while?
It was probably the same price as I paid you, actually.
The
It wasn't
same.
that, yeah, it wasn't that much cheaper, I would say. The
Okay.
difference would be that in the group classes, I didn't have time for myself to speak
Mhm.
and have that attention for me. And also, I realized that I was picking up errors that other students were making that were not being corrected because they were not part of the lesson plan, or we just didn't have time. I think the teachers I had were good, but for me, I didn't really survive well, I would say, in those group classes because again, I wouldn't speak unless I was provoked.
Yeah.
And the loudest students always got all the airtime.
Mm.
So yeah.
Let's say that those lessons were half the price than my lessons. What do you think is more expensive in the long term?
Oh, for sure. What's more expensive is paying for group lessons because I would have more for a longer period, and my learning would be a lot slower. Yeah, because I think I I had been learning by myself, as I said, using many different sources over the course of 7 years. But the progress I've made with you in the last 1.5 years has been more than I'd done on my own. So I think that's why the investment is definitely worth it because I imagine we'll probably have classes what for the next 12 months and then I should be free to fly.
Yeah, and I can assure you, I've known you for 1.5 years now. I can assure you that Radwan is a very motivated person. She's very autonomous. She's very responsible. She's very committed. So it's not even the kind of student that you have to kind of go behind because they've never learned a foreign language, and it's important for the teacher to kind of be pushing and encouraging. You're super, super autonomous, and still you decide to have guidance and structure towards the learning and not just jump from books and an episode of a series now and then I forget and then what apps did you try?
Oh my God. So I tried Anki for flashcards. I had like 160 that just sat there doing nothing. My God. I tried Duolingo in the beginning, but I hated Duolingo in French, so I didn't bother with that. There was another one that came out that was more AI related and it was awful. I don't remember the name. But in the end, I think for me, the gamification of it all just annoyed me because for me,
Okay.
the whole streak thing in Duolingo, forget it. If you're asking me to compete against myself via an app, no.
Okay. Apart from it being like annoying for you personally, do
Mhm,
you find them useful? Let's go by parts. For example, Duolingo, do you find it useful at
mhm.
all?
I remember in the beginning, I found it useful to pick up random words. But in the end, the use was limited because I didn't really apply those words in my life. And it was a bit of, for me, it was my ego saying I'm doing some work to learn. The ego was like, oh, great, I've done 5 minutes of Duolingo today. I'm winning. Well, no, I'm not because I've learned, where is my passport? But how often do I use the phrase, where is my passport?
Yeah. Do you think it's more like it feels productive and it feels like you're doing something where it's kind of a
Exactly.
fake sensation of progress?
Exactly. It does. It does. And I think the difference for me is that when I embed learning into my daily life and it doesn't feel like I'm learning, I learn the most. So last year, when we had the apagón, when the electricity completely died in the country, that was the first time I picked up one of my books in Spanish, and I have a mountain of books a friend gave me. And I started reading, and I remember thinking I've never picked them up before because I'm too afraid of not being able to follow the story. And so I'm going to end up looking up all the words and it removes the pleasure out of reading. But in the end, what I realize is that yes, I miss some words, but I'm getting the idea of the story, and it's not a simple story to follow, and I'm following it. And then I make notes of a few words that I want to remember, but not all the words. And so for that, I think I took something that I love doing, which is reading, I had a decent level of Spanish by then. And so reading a book means that I'm doing something I enjoy and I'm learning at the same time. It's the same with listening to a podcast or I don't really watch that many series in Spanish yet, but for me it's not that relaxing. But doing something that I enjoy in the language that I'm learning brings more than picking up an app that is just telling me that I'm doing something productive. But in the end, after a year of using an app, where would I go with what I've learned? Not very far, I think.
Do you think it's a bit like lying to yourself a little bit?
Of course. Or it's even like not taking yourself seriously enough. You're not taking yourself seriously when you pick up an app because you think you're convincing yourself that this is something that's going to work. Whereas when I took myself seriously, I got myself a tutor because I was serious about, and I am serious and I'm committed to getting to a level of fluency where I can say to myself, when I can say to myself that I'm a fluent Spanish speaker. Today, when I say that, I probably am a little bit, but I don't really believe it, and I want to believe it.
I do believe you're fluent in Spanish. No, today we still have things to work on, but you're able to communicate and to say almost anything
Yeah.
you say. That's what it stands for, fluency.
Mm.
How confident what was your level of confidence? Not that much on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident were you feeling, but develop a little bit on that. How confident were you feeling before we started learning together?
I would say typically what is true about me is that my ability and my level of confidence wasn't accurate. Because I would say that before I met you, I could communicate in Spanish. And others would probably say that I speak well, but my confidence levels were quite low, meaning that if I were to go to, let's say I'm going shopping and I want to speak to the assistant about the size of the clothes or where are the changing rooms, all those basic questions, even though in my head I knew those words, my confidence level was quite low, where I said to myself, I'm not going to be able to survive this conversation. I have to do all this prep work and I would stress out and make sure I had all the potential scenarios mapped out of what they could ask me and how I could answer. And even then I would walk into the situation sweating bullets because I was like, what if they say something I don't understand? What will I do? So it was more the confidence in my ability to handle myself in a new language and be able to say, okay, even if I don't understand, I'll be able to survive it. Um, so my confidence level was quite low, I would say, in my own abilities.
Okay, what about now?
Well, now I must admit, the only time I've really planned uh, a conversation is when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the conversation with the bank. And even then, I thought to myself, I don't think I need to prepare now because I have enough ability to understand, to ask for explanation if I don't understand, and to not feel like an idiot. I think that's my that's my barometer for am I confident? Well, I don't feel like an idiot, so I must be fine. So I think the difference is that before I would over prepare and over stress out, whereas now I have the confidence in my ability to walk into any place that is purely Spanish speaking, and I would also say with any accent, because I know that the accents are very different, and some of them I probably would find incredibly difficult to understand. But I'm not going to have any issues with saying to someone, "Would you mind slowing down? Would you mind explaining that again? I don't know what that word means," and not feel ridiculous when I say it.
Okay.
Actually, last week was an interesting example because I went to lunch with some friends, and the waiter came to us and he asked, "Do you speak Spanish or English?" Because between us we were speaking in English, and we all just said Spanish. And I know that the three of my friends, their abilities are not like mine because they haven't spent the time learning, they work in English, etc. And when he started speaking, he was speaking super quickly and he was Argentinian, but I understood everything. And my friend just kind of went, "No, es muy rápido." And like she was super like direct. And I looked at her like, even I find that a bit rude. In her shoes, I would have said something a bit softer. I would have like used a longer sentence. And he just looked at her like, what on earth? And he looked really frustrated. And then he slowed down so much that I was like, this is now too slow. They understand. And I'm just like, what the that was a good test of the level that I'm at, I think.
Okay, that's amazing. It has been a long time since I don't hear a foreign, I mean, a person that is not from Spain saying,
Mm.
"Oh, this Spanish-speaking person is speaking too slow for me." I've
Too
never
slow.
heard that.
And actually, there used to be an Argentinian Spanish tutor that has quite a famous YouTube channel. I don't remember the name now. And before I started working with you, I would listen to her videos, and they would be at the right pace. There'd be some words that I don't understand. And last week, one of her videos came up on my YouTube feed, and I think we were talking about we were talking about some verb conjugation, you and I. And I thought, oh, let me see how she's teaching it. I had to switch off after a minute because it was too slow. It was too basic. I already knew the answers, and I was like, okay, I've advanced. This is good. It's a good feeling.
Okay, that's amazing. I'm super, super proud, I have to say. Okay, Radwana, what is something that you highlight? Something that maybe you especially enjoy, you find especially efficient, especially useful from this whole program that we've got? You can say several things, maybe.
Um, I think the mix of having the one-on-one classes and the group classes is useful because it allows me to compare in a very healthy way my level of Spanish with other students. Because I don't like comparing and being competitive. It's not really something that I would get anything positive out of. But it's good to see that there are other students with a similar background to me that are either struggling with the same thing or more advanced than me or not so advanced as me. And also learning in a group means that I pick up new phrases that other students know that I would never know. And I also like the fact that the one-on-one lessons are very much tailored to what I need as opposed to what I'm asking for. Because I think in the beginning, you probably remember the first thing I said is subjunctive. I don't get it. La 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 la. We've never had up until today, actually, we've never had a formal lesson on the subjunctive at all. And I think if we started off with a theory of subjunctives, we probably wouldn't have moved past lesson one together, to be honest, because I would have been like, I can do this in a book length.
Yeah. Okay. And just one last question. What would you say to people that go like, yeah, I'm gonna continue to passively listen to podcasts, or I'm gonna continue my 600 days streak on Duolingo, and they don't really see that they're or want to engage in other options?
Hmm. Um, I was definitely in their shoes, and I remember those awful YouTube videos that say I became fluent in Spanish in 30 days, and this is how you can too. And you watch them and think, no, I can't do any of that. I think they can continue doing their Duolingo streak and watching series and listening to podcasts, and on top of that, get a tutor. And the reason why is because when you're serious about achieving something and you really want to do it, you either learn on your own and you become the next YouTube sensation who learned Spanish in 30 days and became fluent, or you do the more realistic thing is to get someone who's able to teach you in a way that fits around your life, that meets the goals that you want to meet, that will be there for when random things pop up in your life that you need help for, like the bank conversation we were talking about 2 weeks ago. And someone who's going to be on call to answer a question in a way that makes sense rather than a textbook that is written very generically and will not explain things in a way that you'll understand. I think the investment is worth it when you're serious about learning a language. And if you're going to continue with the Duolingos of the world, then you also have to be honest with yourself and say, I'm not that serious about learning a language.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to disagree with you in the fact that I would continue doing Duolingo, not because it's gonna do you any harm. Of course, it's not gonna, yeah, like have a negative impact. However, most people have hectic lives, and those 20 minutes that you're devoting on Duolingo, I'm 100% sure you could be devoting them to something else. If you want to do 2 hours of Spanish every day, you've done things that are efficient, meaningful, you've been speaking, you've been interacting. And then, as a kind of a reward, you want to go like, oh, I'm going to go 10 minutes on Duolingo just because I want to have some fun. Yes. However, I don't think that's the situation
Mm.
of 95% of students. Um, so I understand what you mean. Like it's not going to do you any harm to do
Mm,
Duolingo. However, considering that we normally have commitments, families, kids, my job, my friends, my free time, and if you have 30, 40 minutes to spend from 15 to 1 hour, that's your time to be devoted into
mm,
Spanish daily. It's not worth to waste 10, 15 or 20 minutes of that available time that you've got on Duolingo or something like that.
mm.
Okay, so that's it. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to mention?
Um, well, I think only to say thank you for your patience because I know there are some classes I turn up and I'm like, blah, 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 and it's great. And some classes I can barely conjugate a basic verb I've been using for almost 10 years. And I've never seen you look frustrated or, like you've switched off. You're always so present. So I thank you for your patience because I know I can't be the easiest of students sometimes.
Well, I have to thank you as well because you're a marvelous student, I have to say. And it's a pleasure for me to teach you. I'm being really, really honest here. All right, so Radwana, thanks a lot for this chat, for this conversation. I think it can be inspiring for other people. And yes, I'll see you next week in our lesson.
Yes, I'll have my homework done.
Venga, Radwana, pues nos vemos
Nos
pronto.
vemos.
Un saludo.
Chao.
Chao.